So the final award to be presented this afternoon is the Irving and Jeanne Glovin Award. And this award was established in 2003 by the Oskar Schindler Humanities Foundation to foster research into the meaning and underlying principles of good human conduct. And in order to demonstrate what constitutes good human conduct, I'll read you, it's a little scenario that Dr. George Mencher, who is Irving and Jeanne Glovin's nephew and one of our selection committee members, but who can't be here, usually tells at these presentations. So I apologize. I'm sure he would deliver it much better. So I'm just reading it off the page. So imagine that you live in a house on the corner of a street. The government passes a law that you shouldn't exist. Across the street from you is a neighbor who says, that's the law, I'm obligated to obey the law, and turns you in. So across the street is another person who says, it's a really, really bad law. The best thing I can do is just ignore it. And this person actually doesn't do anything. So the person living across the street on the other side says, it's such a bad law that I have to act against it. And that person hides you, lies for you, and protects you. So the question is, which of these people demonstrates good human conduct? The person who obeys the law, the person who ignores a bad law, or the person who breaks a law in order to protect a human being affected by a bad law? So this is the question. So this is the quandary that Oskar Schindler faced in the 1940s Germany. The concept of good human conduct, as seen in Schindler's example, is a broad one. Is it good conduct to disobey a law? Well, that depends. In Schindler's case, it was. His actions, as you all know, I'm sure, indeed his interpretation of and adherence to good human conduct inspired not only films and books, but generations of people, and actually this award too. So it directly is owed to Schindler. So in creating the fund, the foundation wished to stimulate scholarly work that defines good human conduct under a parameter that all could agree, explore its sources, and develop pragmatic educational strategies to teach it to children. Students entering the Irving and Jeanne Glovin Award competition are encouraged to demonstrate the importance of acceptance and mutual respect for others and the impact this behavior has on society. So I would like to thank on behalf of Dalhousie University to the Glovin family and the Oskar Schindler Foundation for bringing this challenge to the senior undergraduate and graduate students of all faculties across Dalhousie. So we administer it, but it's not actually restricted. This one is not restricted to FASS students, but I'm glad it's staying here this time. The recipient of the 2018 Irving and Jeanne Glovin Award is a PhD student in the Department of English, Brittany, how'd you pronounce it, Kraus or Kraus? Kraus. Kraus for her paper, The Roach's Revenge, an insect's play of suicide and survival in Rawi, Hage's Cockroach. So Dr. Carrie Dawson, Carrie, where are you? I saw you earlier, yeah? Of the Department of English provided a letter in support of Brittany's essay. And this is how she describes her essay: as a wide-ranging, erudite, and very well-researched paper that considers how the 2008 novel Cockroach interrogates dominant notions of good human conduct as they relate to and are circumscribed by citizenship and national belonging, end of quotation. She adds that Brittany's paper shows, and I'm quoting again, an impressive range of philosophical, literary, and political theory to present a trenchant critique of the ways in which the language of pestilence and disease is mobilized to dehumanize and demonize marginalized and vulnerable people. It's almost as good as the paper, then. The explanation. She notes the timeliness and importance of this essay given the refugee crisis and, I quote again, the prominence of competing public discourses to do with national security and humanitarianism. The selection in this committee the selection committee in this case included Marty Leonard. I don't think Marty's here today, the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies, Dr. Bob Hewish. Is Bob around? No. And Dr. George Mencher from Human Communications. And we all found, and me, of course, and found the paper to be beautifully written, really well written, with strong research and excellent use of methodology. So Brittany, can you please come here so that I can congratulate you, give you your check? And then
It's a lot of different heights today. So thanks for coming. I am honored to be here and to have had my essay selected as the winning essay for this competition. I'd like to thank the Irving and Jeanne Glovin Foundation, Irving and Jeanne Glovin rather, the Oscar Schindler Humanities Foundation, the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, and it's nice to see you again, Genevieve, and the Awards Selection Committee. I'd especially like to thank my supervisor, Dr. Carrie Dawson, who is also the chair of the English department, for writing me what I can only assume was a killer letter of recommendation, and just for basically putting up with me for all of these years. So thank you so much for your support. In my essay, I explore the meaning and principles of good human conduct in relation to one of the most pressing and controversial issues of our age, the global refugee and migration crisis. I believe that as issues of migration, citizenship, security, and terror are at the heart of our age, examining the role of good human conduct in today's world necessitates a critical rethinking of what it means to be human, and more importantly, who is called by that name. So I'm just going to read a brief, but probably longer excerpt than the previous recipients have, because I'm the last, and so I can go the longest. In an interview with Reader Sacker in 2011, Lebanese-Canadian writer Rawi Hage characterizes his 2008 novel Cockroach as deeply influenced by the crisis of identity and the conflictual nature of the question of belonging. The psychological and physical ambivalence of Cockroach's narrative, he is half human, half roach, emblematizes the diasporic split consciousness that characterizes a lot of contemporary writing about immigration, exile, and the condition of refuginess. However, while the narrator is torn between staying human and assuming the role of the primitive to survive, his mutant identity calls into question the degree to which modern discourses of the human and humanitarianism can exist beyond state apparatuses of citizenship and belonging. If, as Giorgio Agamben argues, the so-called sacred and inalienable rights of man are inextricable from the rights of the citizen, then what are the rights of the human who lacks or is denied the privilege of citizenry and status? When, in other words, is being human not enough? What rights does a cockroach have? In Hannah Arendt's seminal essay, We Refugees, she argues that, quote, contemporary history has created a new kind of human beings, unquote, the refugee and the exile, those without homes, countries, or political status. But being human is not a guarantee of human rights. In his reading of Arendt's essay, Agamben highlights the ways in which the refugee, or pure man in his words, poses a radical threat to the political and legal order of the nation-state. So I quote him here, that there is no autonomous space within the political order of the nation-state for something like the pure man in himself is evident at least of the fact that the status of the refugee is always considered to be a temporary condition that should lead either to naturalization or to repatriation. A permanent status of man in himself is inconceivable for the law of the nation-state. In other words, human rights are not a priori. Without papers, without citizenship, without legal or political status, the refugee or stateless person is subject to, and these are Arendt's words, the fate of human beings who, unprotected by any specific law or political convention, are nothing but human beings. To survive, Arendt writes, these mere humans must continuously change their names, adopt false accents and fake names, forget the past, and play the role of the happy and well-assimilated citizen. She writes, the less we are free to decide who we are or to live as we like, the more we try to put up a front, to hide the facts, and to play roles. In Cockroach, the narrator's freedom is jeopardized by his impoverishment, his visibility as a racialized minority in Canada, and his reliance on the welfare of the state. His embodiment of the pure man derives not from the fact that he lacks citizenship, he does indeed have papers, but rather because he is denied access to the rights and privileges that Canadian citizenship supposedly confers: gainful employment, adequate health care, opportunities for educational and socioeconomic advancement. I assured myself, he states at one point, that a good, hardworking man such as me could not possibly be left out to burn that last day or be subjected to the rule of cockroaches in the world to come. Yet left out is exactly what he is. He's repeatedly a victim of racialized and class-based discrimination, and repeatedly excluded from participation in the civic and economic order of the city. When he applies for a job as a waiter at an upscale French restaurant, the maitre d' turns him down, saying, "The sun has burned your face a bit too much." So the narrator immediately launches into one of his many spectacular tirades. This is one of my favorite. "Impotent, infertile filth," I shouted at Pierre. "Your days are over and your kind is numbered. No one can escape the sun on their faces, and no one can barricade against the powerful, fleeting semen of the hungry and oppressed." I promised him that one day he would be serving only giant cockroaches on his velvet chairs. Doomed you will be, doomed as you are infested with newcomers. As the narrator threatens the maitre d' of the unstoppable invasion of newcomers, his body shifts between human and insect form, his index fingers fluttering like a pair of gigantic antennae. His sputtering rage at the injustices of his own life manifests as a promise of revenge and the inevitable destruction of the systematic structures of racism, colonialism, and capitalism that denigrate people to the status of bugs. He assumes the role of a mad prophet, a soothsayer of doom. No one can stop the hungry and oppressed, he warns. Thank you.